Have you ever felt so down that food doesn't taste good, flowers don't smell fragrant, and colors don't look as vibrant? That's how James Jones has been feeling since the airport was built in Paradise Bay. Everything feels off. He's feeling more down than he did when he originally moved to the area, and that's because his town, the town that built him, Bend, lost out on the biggest infrastructure project ever built in the county, and he can't help but feel that it's his fault. You see, he sold a significant chunk of land to Sheila Johnson and helped her in her crusade to make Paradise Bay the biggest and most important city in Magnolia County. And the airport was just the start. She's been using her political connections to try to convince the county to relocate their administrative offices to Paradise Bay, promising larger, more modern offices in the city's planned City Hall complex. Every day he complains to Jamila that he should have never sold to Sheila, and Jamila seems to be tiring of the conversation, considering that their relationship is intact because of the land sale. Then one day he just stops talking about it. And over the course of a few weeks, his mood begins to dramatically improve. And one night he asks Jamila out for a date at one of the finest restaurants in all of Bend. And it's a good evening. And as they finish their meal, James smiles and tells Jamila that he has a plan to ensure that Bend remains the most important city in the region. Jamila's face drops as James explains that he has quietly put 3 separate offers on farmland in the town of Franklin, all of which have been accepted. And he's done this because he'd like to build a new neighborhood with thousands of housing units, a new elementary school, a new high school, and a new shopping center. And to grease the skids a bit, he's been chatting with Bend's alders one by one about the project. And over the course of many conversations, he's convinced the majority of them to approve it. In addition, he's convinced them to approve a controversial Greenfield tax increment financing agreement for a brand new bridge that would link the development directly to downtown Bend. He then tells Jamila that this neighborhood will be one of the finest neighborhoods in the whole of the county, and he believes the catalyst for increased density and redevelopment on the east side of the Carp River. The only thing that he needs is her blessing. This would be the biggest project that he's ever taken on, and he needs her full support. He says he can still back out of the deals if she's not on board, and that's why he's coming to her before finalizing anything this time. But Jamila feels trapped. How could she say no? He already has offers on the properties. He already has agreements with local elected officials to fund a bridge, for crying out loud. So she nods, but she isn't happy. She can't help but feel that this is Hidden Brook all over again. James excitedly gives her a hug and says that this is the beginning of a new era. So in this episode, we'll develop farmland into a brand new neighborhood. We'll begin with site preparation, upgrading existing roads to urban standards and constructing a bridge before laying out the local roads for the neighborhood. Then, we'll plan and build the neighborhood, complete with new city services, a shopping district, and plenty of green space. And if you think that James is doing the right thing, hit the like button. And if you're not a fan of James, hit the like button for that too, and let me know how you feel down in the comments. Or leave an emoji letting me know how you feel for the sake of engagement. But before we jump in, this video has been sponsored by me, or more specifically, my merch store, which has just been updated with all new designs, like this beautiful Magnolia County mug. And these absolutely massive and absolutely super cool Let's Take a Mulligan and The Struggle is Rail mugs. And we've still got old favorites like this Verde Beach Metro map and the Respect the Topography sweatshirt. So if you want to check it out, just head to cityplannerplays.com. And while you're there, if you're a content creator or streamer and are looking for 100% DMCA safe music, check out Master Plan Music. That's right, you can use the music that I've had produced for my videos in your content for free. And you can do that by either downloading it from my website or streaming it from your favorite music streaming platform. Just be sure to include the words Master Plan Music in your video or stream description on YouTube to ensure that your video is whitelisted. And on Twitch, you don't have to do anything. It's completely safe to use. And with that out of the way, let's get back to the video. Hello and welcome back to Magnolia County. The focus of today's build is going to be right here, and we are going to begin by prepping our site and doing a little bit of a roadway layout. But I wanted to begin right here so you have a sense of scale and context for where this area is. This is an absolutely massive area. It's about the same size as East Bend or even the whole of downtown Bend, and we are going to be designing it and building it all today. But there is one thing I want to do first, and that is change our district boundaries, because right now these farms are in the town of Franklin. So now I want to clear most of the right-of-way in here and all of the farms. Now we'll grab the highway and reconstruct it to urban standards. That's something I would expect to see happen with a project such as this one. And now here I'm only interested in running this urbanized segment to the middle of this tree line right here. So I'm going to double click this to add a node. And now I'm stopping this right in the center, and I can get this upgraded exactly how I want it. Now on the other side of this, we need to have a better transition. This is pretty rough right now with the turnaround. So what I think that we're gonna do is kind of plan for that speed to drop off a little bit. And you know, in thinking about it, what I'm actually gonna do is upgrade this to be a highway segment, a consistent highway segment all the way through. And then why don't we provide ourselves a turn lane right here onto this other highway? That seems to make some sense to me. And then we gain a lane right here in here. Now I mentioned the speeds and we can adjust that. We've got the speed limiter mod. And what I might do, this one right here is 50 kilometers. I'll just start to taper down. And I've basically gone through here and grabbed every single segment and dropped the speed until we get to our urbanized section. And I think that that works really, really well. So we've got our major arterial figured out right here. That's Main Street. And then this right here up here is going to be a minor arterial. Right now it's Inferior Avenue. This is going to be another bridge connection that goes across. And because of that, this is going to carry a ton of traffic. So I don't want this to be a 2-lane road. I think we've got to do better. So what we'll do is use the road builder on this, and we can just use all the default characteristics, except that I want to have traffic lights on intersections because I want this road to have priority. So the only change I want to make here is I want to narrow the sidewalks up as narrow as we can make them, which is 3.5. And then we're going to add 2 more car lanes in the middle. And we'll make those for cars only. We'll make sure their directions are in the right way. There we go. And that is exactly what we want. No more, no less. So the reason why I care about this is this should be about 3 meters narrower than a normal 4-lane road. But let's line it up just to double check. And you can see it right there without the parking, with the narrower sidewalk. It's just a much smaller road. It's slightly bigger than our 2-lane road. And that means that when we start to work in some of our already urbanized areas, my hope is that we don't have to use a bunch of eminent domain. We can work within the existing right-of-way. Now, we're going to see a test of it right here. I'm going to keep Anarchy on so I don't inadvertently delete things. But what I'm hoping to do is just to turn off Snap to Existing Geometry and slide things over so that I'm not encroaching upon properties. And you can see that this one is very close, but I think we get away with that. You might have noticed that we've got this road right here, which might seem curious. The only road I didn't delete. And the main reason for that is I've got big plans right here. We've got these mature oak trees, and I could see a city council saying, you know, I love your plan, but we've got to save these trees. So my idea here is that we are going to run parallel 1 lanes on the outside of these, turn this road into a path, and then meet up right here in the very center with our own road. So for this, we've already got the perfect road built. We've got these 1-way narrow roads with sidewalks, and I'm thinking that we can just parallel the sides of this. We've already got our zoning grid right here, and we can see that it looks like it's about 6 units in between these. So we'll give that a shot first, bump this up to 6. Look at that. Could we have gotten any luckier? This is a minor arterial. This will likely be a collector road right here. So I'm okay having additional junctions right here. We'll deal with that in this particular section. Over here, I'm less okay with that. So what we're gonna do is use our complex curve to pull these roads into one. So what I'm thinking is I want to create some guidelines right here. So we'll start right here. I'll send it up to that middle road, click again, send it into this road, click again, and then we'll send it up to that 3rd road. And I can do that on the other side as well. And now when I delete all this nonsense, it should look pretty darn good. Or acceptable. It's fine. So the one thing I want to improve is this kind of doesn't look great right now. And I think the reason for that is kind of a mismatch in the cross sections. So let's make another custom road. And this is going to be a 2-lane road with a median. You can see that the sidewalks line up and the roads just look, in general, pretty clean. We won't let perfect be the enemy of good in this particular instance. Now, we're going to start laying out these specific farm areas, and the first one I want to build is right here. And the idea for this farm is going to be that this is where we have some of our larger homes. I also want to have a fairly sizable park in the center, And we're going to use some neat tricks that I learned from Harbor Master Jay to really create a park that feels lively. But first things first, let's lay out this area. We're going to be really focusing on maximizing our saleable lots. Now we're going to switch gears and move over to this area. And what we're going to have for the second farm is a higher density, low density residential area. So smaller lots, more density of homes. And then in the center, I want to have a retention pond, which will also double as a park feature. Now, I want to really start to be a little bit more creative with the roads over here. So we're going to try some new techniques. The first one I want to try is using these one-way narrow streets with sidewalks in a couplet. So my idea is it will basically come from this area, and at a 90 will come like this, but we're not perfectly centered. So I'm going to have to play with this a little bit. And it looks like that's about perfect. And I just had to eyeball it with the 90-degree angle tool set to activate it. I think for this one, we will use just a regular 2-lane road. And then I want to have one more couplet. It'll look like it's basically following this road, but I don't want to connect this all the way through. You might have noticed that these are really messy. It's not well defined. And the main reason for that is we're going to be deleting these a few times. I'm going to be creating some super nodes. And really what I care more about than the length of these roads is the depth of the lots here. I want to make sure we're no deeper than 6 units. And on all of these couplets, we're going to have super nodes. So I'm just going to draw a temporary road right here. Then we'll delete some of these. Throw in some gigantic roundabouts. And then redo our parallels. I want to have this go another block. And that is more or less what I was thinking. Now, our pond is going to be right here, which is why I've stopped all of the streets. And now I want to set a street to go around where the pond will be. Now, I want to mirror what we did over here for at least one block on this side. Now, I'm going to mirror our parallel facilities one more time. And now I want to kind of finish this off in the same way up here, but we've got Beach Street kind of cutting a little bit too far down. And I'm wondering if we look at our terrain, if we can tighten that up a little bit. And then for the last little bit of the neighborhood, this is where we're going to have some of our educational facilities, as well as our shopping complex and a bit more density. And what I'm thinking is we should try to mirror some of our existing roadway patterns. And there we go. So fairly simple. But what I'm thinking is we have the elementary school right here, high school right here, shopping center right here, maybe 1 or 2 higher density buildings right here, some row homes, and then maybe a specialty building and some more commercial and office. And the last thing I want to do with our roadway layout is control the zoning a bit using the zoning toolkit. So for this one, I really just want to go through and make sure that we don't have zoning on certain roads. Now, one of the things that I love about this is it might not seem super obvious for a street like Evergreen not to have zoning, but it consolidates our zoning on Lafayette and Center Street, where I really want to have the zoning anyway, and we'll get larger buildings. That's one of the reasons why I'm going through and controlling all of this. And with our layout complete, let's move on to building a custom bridge. This bridge in the downtown is going to be incredibly important, and I think it's going to be what drives growth in this area. So we're going to be taking Willow Street right here and sending it across over to 3rd Street. 3rd Street is a minor arterial. It is only 2 lanes, but this is where we have City Hall. This goes all the way up the hill through Canterbury, and it connects over to Uptown. So this is a very important facility, and I think linking it here will spur development and growth. Now, one of the things about this bridge is that we've used this custom road, but because I've used it, we really don't have many options in terms of bridges. So I'm going to try to make something a little bit more custom in this area. We don't have a lot of things available to us, but we've got a little bit, and we're going to try something completely different. But first things first, I want to start to figure out how we lay this out, and I know that we're going to have to do a little bit of demolition. And what I'm thinking is on 3rd Street, I want to raise the bridge up. Basically starting at Main Street, we'll go up and over Riverbend Boulevard and then bring the bridge over, have a slight jog right here and connect up with Briar Rose Street. The other interesting thing here is the topography. It's a little bit higher right here, which means that we have to have that elevation over here to make it a relatively flat bridge, which is what I'm looking for. And then I'm going to use the eyedropper to steal this road and start to upgrade 3rd Avenue. Now I have Anarchy on so I don't inadvertently delete buildings because I want this to feel like the city's gone through and shoehorned this road upgrade into place. Now because we have plopped the growables, nothing's going away. We're just making it happen. We lose parking here, but we're able to have this fit nicely. And that brings us back to Main Street. So again, we are going to begin our incline right here. And with Anarchy on, I'm going to try to figure out where this goes. But ideally, I think I would place this without Anarchy. So I'm going to turn it off for just a moment. The main reason for that is I want to make sure we're going to conflict with this parking lot. That's fine. I don't want to conflict with Riverbend. So I'm going to pull this out basically until I see Riverbend stop glowing red, which is right about here. We get this 4.3% incline, which is pretty good. And then I'll turn Anarchy on and place the road. Now, the nice thing about that is it looks like the parking lot's still on the road. So is this building. It's a little bit messed up. We can modify some of this with Move It. There we go. That's good. That's good. Minus the buildings clipping through. Don't worry about that. Details. Now we need to make the connection over here. And I think because this is dropping down, this can remain relatively flat as we bring this over. And maybe I try to match the same incline on this side. So about 4%. And there we go. And I'm married to exactly none of this bridge just yet. I just want to make sure that it looks good. You can see there's a little bit of a bump right here, but honestly, it's not bad. That's not bad. I'm going to use Move It to make some fine tune adjustments. And you know what? I think that we aren't going to let perfect be the enemy of good. This is pretty okay. And truthfully, it's making me want to demolish the whole thing. And of course, I say that I've got to improve it. I think we can. Okay, I don't know that that is any better, but it makes me feel good, so we're going to go with it. So now we want to customize this. This looks identical to that bridge, but probably a more reasonable height. What I want to do is actually add some new supports, some new, better looking supports. So these normal supports, I've never really liked them all that much, but the supports that come with the 2-lane truss arch bridge are pretty cool. So I'm going to search for that. And you can see right here, we have the 2-lane truss arch bridge pillar. So these are an interesting asset. So we can place these and mess with them with Move It, but we can't put them on land. So if we're going to use these, we have to keep them in the water. And I can show you why in a moment, but I'm just going to basically go ahead and try to place these right where these other pillars are. That'll make them look normal and natural. And I'm going to try to line up the edges with the sidewalk. So here is going to be that one that I think gets screwed up. I'll place it anyway, and then we'll pop back into Move It. And when I select the support, I can Control H this to the node on the bridge, which we should be right over the top of, and that's the problem. you can see that this actually modifies the terrain and it looks really bad. So we won't do that for this one, but for the rest of them we will. This is also why Control H is the main reason why I didn't really care that these are popping up. We have to adjust all of them anyway. And you know, I moved this one in a little bit and it doesn't look bad. And that makes me wonder if we should do the same thing with this one. I might call a mulligan on what I said. And maybe we'll just sneak one in here. Actually, on this side, you can see that the bridges, the supports get closer together. So I will eyeball it a bit. And then for support, I've keyed it right here, and that should do the trick for us. I like that a lot. Whew. I had to tap that button probably 100 times. I'm closer to carpal tunnel than ever. Now, I want to get rid of all of those old pillars, and we're going to use our better bulldozer for that. And we just have to remove sub-elements, and we will go for similar category and see if that gets rid of all of them. It doesn't. We're still doing one at a time. Not a big deal. We have to get rid of the tops and the bottoms. And there we go. I think that looks really good. I do wish that I had a way to completely space these out perfectly, but I do think at a distance, at a glance, it looks pretty darn good, and that's what I was looking for. Now, we do have to reestablish some of our connections on our pedestrian network. So let's do that right now. And I want to clean up where we have this bridge pillar. It looks pretty bad. And reasonably, this whole shoreline needs some love. So I'm not going to go ham on it because I think that in a future video, we'll cover that exclusively, just working on shorelines. Now I want to figure out the zoning in this area. And before we just go ham demolishing things, I want to see what we had. We had a large office building, high density. Actually, this is a low income building. This is a high density European housing building. And then another one back there. So what I think we're going to do, these can't exist as they are because they are facing the bridge. We are going to get rid of these. We will get rid of that as well. And I'm going to make this all right here one building, a nice high density office. And then right here, we are going to make this a high density European building. And it looks like we get two. I don't necessarily want that. Low rent. There we go. One building, much better. Now, because we have a net loss in housing, I think we might add a little bit over here, that little bit of that redevelopment that James was hoping for. And there we go. I would imagine that we receive a ton of pushback about this project, considering all of these homeowners have enjoyed nice views of the downtown skyline. But onwards and upwards, this is what happens. As this area becomes very dense, you start to see that density spread, and I like what's happening. Now, we've got one more thing to do, and that is rename this street. And I think there's only one name that makes sense at this point: Bridge Street. So this whole street is now Bridge Street. What I like about that is we had this weird situation where if we would have named this 3rd Street, we end up with 3rd Street and 3rd Avenue side by side. That's an absolute navigation nightmare. And I assume that the safety agencies would have said no to that, because imagine if you get called because someone has a heart attack on 3rd Avenue on the east side of the bridge and you end up at 3rd Street. That's not going to work. Now, I am very curious about how you guys feel about this bridge. If you like this, maybe we'll give the exact same treatment over to our Main Street bridge. Otherwise, we can make that a tied arch bridge. Maybe we'll leave a poll on the community tab where you guys can vote. And with our bridge complete, let's move on to placing some city services. So now I want to go through every single city service one by one to make sure that Franklin is covered. The only one that I know for certain that we are going to be placing is school coverage. So let's begin with healthcare and death care. And you can see that we have absolutely no healthcare coverage in this area. So we are going to place a new clinic. And reasonably, I'm going to place our larger clinic because this area will have increased density over time. And we're going to place that near this interchange. I think this is actually great from a healthcare perspective, considering they'd be able to get in and out of this area relatively quickly. Now, looking at our death care, we've had lots of issues. I keep seeing hearses pop up, and I've been thinking a lot about why this is happening. Now, this area shouldn't need any death care, and the main reason for that, if we get rid of all of the clutter, is that we've got a death care facility right here, and it's directly linked to this new area. So I think that the bigger concern is that I don't know that we've specified districts for any of our death care buildings. And indeed, we have no operating districts. So I am going to start to set these districts. We're going to go one by one. We've got one death care facility here, one in Hidden Brook, one in Bend, and one over in Bailey. And that is it for the entire area. So I'll try to divide these up evenly. And there we go. That should be coverage to basically everything. The one place that I know is not getting coverage just yet is the airport. And we haven't named that yet, but we will by the end of the episode. For now, let's add a district around here. And because we have a district, we can now assign the cemetery to this area. And you can see that all those death care icons that we had blinking are now gone. And the main reason for that is that the hearses don't have to travel as far anymore. They are able to stay within their district, head back to their crematorium or their cemetery, and go right back out for dispatch. So this is a much better solution. Now, speaking of that, we placed this new medical clinic and we didn't select a district for this. And I know that we've been good about this so far. So I will modify this. And for the downtown Bend clinic, we will remove those neighborhoods. And that should help out, relieve some of the pressure that clinic is facing. Next, we have garbage management, and we really only have one facility right there, and it's covering the entire region. I think we're okay from that perspective for now. Next up, we have fire protection, and things look pretty good here. Looking at the roads, we can see that the coverage is good enough. I'm not really all that worried about the trees because there's great accessibility there from the roads. Police protection is much the same story. We're looking really good right there as well. And we're really close to that downtown Bend police station. And you can see for telecom coverage, it's basically perfect. We're right next to this College of Information Technology, which is actually a telecom facility. Then we'll take a look at mail coverage, and you can see that there is a slight area of no coverage. And that's because there was a mailbox, I want to say it was right in this area, and we deleted that. So we'll just place a new one. And that provides excellent coverage for the entire neighborhood. I think I may also place a small post office just so that we have a little bit more capacity in our postal system. Otherwise, our main post office is way downtown, and we'll add this one right near our clinic. And now let's take a look at transit coverage. And what I think we're going to do is have some sort of a coverage route over here. Now, this green route that already is in East Bend is a coverage route. This route goes to our bus station over there. And I don't really want to mirror that. What I want to do is provide an opportunity to transfer and maybe run this route through the downtown area. So we are going to add a route that loops through here, through the neighborhood itself, and then we'll have it come down. And I'm thinking that we are going to have a stop right here near our train station, or maybe directly on. Maybe we'll cut down here on this arterial and then pop back up. Then we'll go into the downtown area to our bus station. Okay, now I wanted to point out the reason this stop is here is to provide access to the train station. It's a little bit of a hike, but I don't want to deviate too much through this neighborhood. And then I also noticed we had some wonky stuff happening right here. One waypoint should fix that right on up. So I have a feeling that this will eventually be a fairly popular bus route. So we might need to add capacity down the line. But for now, we're just going to name it the Magenta Line. And then we will take a look at this because I want to assign electric buses, and we are going to turn the number of vehicles all the way down to the lowest levels. And now I want to focus on our schools. And what I'm thinking is this little triangle right here is going to be where we have our elementary school. And this little kind of larger area, awkwardly shaped area, is going to be where we place our high school. So I'm going to place the elementary school first. And I've got some ideas that you might not agree with, but we're going to give it a go anyway. I want to make a campus out of this elementary school and its extensions, and I don't want it to look weird. I think that this asset looks really weird when it's expanded, at least in the context of the upper Midwest, because it's kind of an open air campus and it just doesn't make sense for this area. So I'm going to place both of these, and then I'm going to add some upgrades, but I'm going to do a lot of overlapping. So for this one, let's add our gymnasium, but rather than listening to what it wants us to do, I'm going to turn off all the snap twos. And I think if we orient this correctly and we focus on roof lines, we might be able to make this look like a convincing building. Now, honestly, I'm fairly satisfied with this, but I really don't like what's happening to the basketball court. So I'm going to try to move this momentarily, the entire facility. And for that, I select the school. I'm going to pull this over here. And I think the issue is that I didn't grade this site, and that little bit of elevation change is ruining everything. And then we pull this thing back, and that fixes all of our issues right there. Now, what I want to do is switch gears to the Better Bulldozer, and we are going to delete some paths so that this nonsense right here is resolved. So I'm going to select Remove Markers and then Remove Sub-Elements, and that should let me delete some of these paths. And you can see that there are a lot of them going through the building right now. And honestly, this thing is working right now. So even though I could keep deleting things, I'm inclined not to. What I want to instead focus on is if there are any sub elements that seem off now, I want to remove those. So that's things like this fence is now clipping into the building. We can get rid of just that one piece, but truthfully, it looks pretty darn good. So instead, I will modify the surfaces. And that's looking better. The last thing I want to do is think about parking on this site, as well as getting a normal playground, because this is an elementary school after all. And now it just kind of looks like a mini high school. And then the last thing I want to do here is probably a little bit detail-y, but I just want to add a fence around the entire school campus. And there we go. I think that that is a great little campus. We can't forget, though, that we've got to assign districts here. Otherwise, this will once again be completely filled to the brim. And I think it already is. Yeah, 600 students here. So this elementary school, let's reassign the districts here. And this one goes, it's really only this downtown area, and it's already full. And then we have another elementary school right here. This one is also full, and that one's serving everything else over here. I'm going to take away these areas, and we'll assign those to this elementary school. But reasonably, there's a chance that we need more elementary schools. Now, I want to take that exact same concept that we just used at the elementary school and apply it to the high school. And for this one, we've got these extension wings, and we don't really know, well, we kind of need one. What I think we're going to do is basically try to line this up on the side right here in a way that makes sense. And honestly, it already looks pretty darn good in my opinion. Now, I'd be inclined to put one over here as well. But my issue with that is that we've got this parking facility, and I've already tried to play with this quite a bit. You can't get rid of it, not entirely. It's the dashed line right here and the solid outside white line. So rather than trying to make that work, I think we might just leave it like this. We'll have a right-sized school, and then we are going to place our high school sports park. And I think we've got enough space for it. It is massive. Boy, oh boy, was that a tight fit. And reasonably, this makes me want to move the high school. And if I move the high school, it's going to move the sports stadium. So I'm going to delete this momentarily. We'll move this whole thing over. We'll place it one more time. And then, you know, honestly, it's good. It's really a tight fit, but I think it's going to work out just fine. Now, next I want to add a bit of parking, both for the students and for the teachers. This asset comes with a bit, but that to me seems like short-term parking, like where a parent would go to pick up a sick kid. So we'll add a modest parking lot for our teacher lot, and we'll put that right near the back of the school. And then we'll add a medium parking lot that will double as both student parking and parking for game day. And then the last thing I want to add is a path from the football stadium to the high school. And you can see that I think the main entry into this facility is actually right here. So two things I want to do. Obviously, we have to have some sort of pedestrian connection up to Main Street. So we'll add that. And then I'm going to try to find another way to add one over here. And I think for this one, what I'm going to do is basically extend this surface underneath this facility. And I had to be really careful because this, I don't even know if this is gravel or something like that. It will overlap the grass. So I had to make sure that we were not on the surface itself for the stadium. And then one more connection, and that's going to be back to the high school itself. And that's not perfect, but I think it's going to be perfectly fine. All we've got to do is add our pedestrian connections and everything should be good to go. And then lastly, I'm going to add a decorative fence. This will prevent kids from jumping into traffic, which, you know, that's a problem. And I think it'll be a lower fence. Maybe we'll go with this residential low one. And then lastly, let's create our parks. And this is really three different pieces. So we're gonna make a custom park right here that bleeds into the area with the oaks. We're gonna make a pond with a walking area around it. And then we're gonna place some parks. So I'm gonna start with the pond because it's probably the most complicated one. And I'll clear out the landscaping. And then I wanna drop this maybe 5 meters or so into the ground. And this is relatively level, so it should be fairly easy. We'll go 5 meters from the low point. And I'll go with a fairly small brush size and a very low brush strength. And you know, there are 3 ways that we could handle this. We could either have a bunch of landscaping along here and try to have it bleed in and maybe not have any paths around here, just have people use the sidewalk. We could also use a bunch of riprap and try to use that as a way to circle around the pond. Or we could use key walls and paths. And that's the route I think I'm gonna go for this one. Then I used Move It with Control H to completely make sure that all of this is nice and even, looking very good. Now I want to add a key wall. And then we'll dig the rest of this out. There we go. And now we are ready to load this thing up with water. And for this, we're using the water features mod and we'll use the lake tool. And I'm just going to place it at the default elevation and kind of see where things shake out. I think we need a little bit more height, so I'll use the elevation change feature. Go to the center and pull this up a little ways. And you can see the elevation change as I move this up or down. And I want to say that that is pretty close to what I'm looking for. And then the last thing I want to do here is add a couple of pedestrian connections. We'll line those perfectly up with the center of this road. And nothing all that extravagant, just a couple of connections. So now I want to add a path through the center of this area, something very basic. And now I want to find the center of this block. This is 105 meters, and I'm going to run a path right here. And that's because this is going to be a custom park. Now I'm going to place a real park. And for this one, we will use this small park. And I have to face this towards a road, otherwise this won't work. So I'm going to turn all the snapping off, rotate it around, and get it as far away from the road as I can. And now Better Bulldozer is going to do some really clutch stuff for us. So I want to begin by eliminating all of the stuff here, including the homeless encampments. So those will probably come back. We know what's going on in the game. And now I want to remove some of the networks. So this connection to this area, I want to remove. And I've got to make sure that both remove markers and remove sub-elements is activated, and then I can get rid of these paths. And you can see that it's very unhappy now. That's okay. We'll make that connection without actually touching it because that'll create a bridge, and now it's completely happy. And now it's time to make the magic happen. And this is where I gotta give a huge shout out to Harbor Master Jay, who showed me this. So basically, the reason why we placed the park here is because they have some areas built into it. So if you have the extra networks and areas mod installed, you might think I will just go into landscaping, find the spaces and areas, and draw some of these park areas. And you could draw them, but nothing will happen. But if you place a park that already has them in here, you are able to expand these and have this entire area activate. So that's what we're gonna do. So you can see that we've got 3 of these, and they are different types of areas, different activities will take place, but there's no way to tell what they are. So if you really care what types of activities are happening, you need to pay some close attention. But I'm not overly concerned. What I'm gonna do is just extend this out. And there we go. So now this entire area should be activated for park activities. So that's why we see people walking through here. And if we speed things along, we should actually see people meandering in the park as well. Now, the one oddity is people are going to walk up to the park and then they will partake in their activity. Now, I accidentally deleted one of the areas and I'm not sure which one it is, but there are these couple of different types of areas. It looks like this right here must be the gym park area. So that is why this person is right here doing what appears to be yoga. And then I'm not sure what this one is, if this is just a hangout area, but there are the 3 different kinds. And yeah, you can see in this area, this must be the hangout area. This person's just lounging, unless of course they're homeless. So they are lounging. It's a hangout area. They're hanging out, sleeping in the grass. Very good. So once again, huge shout out to Harbor Master Jay for showing me how to do that. And we will decorate this more, but I think we're going to hold off to the landscaping and detailing because what I want to do right now is just place a couple more parks. So we are going to look at our leisure. And honestly, we're in a pretty good place, but we can't leave it like this because everyone deserves both a playground and everyone wants a dog park. And honestly, that could be enough, but I like to have basketball courts, so I think we might add a basketball court, maybe with a view of the pond. And I've decided to move these off that couplet, and I think that that looks pretty darn good. And with that, all of our city services are in place, and it's now fall. So let's move on to zoning. My whole goal with the zoning today is going to be to keep it simple. So when I can zone things in, I will do so. And when I have to finesse things, I'll try to do so as little as possible. So I want to begin over here around the park. And I really only want to use 2 different types of low density residential. That is the European low density and the North American waterfront housing. And I love that I can select both themes now, so I can kind of mix those through here. Now for all of these, I want a consistent lot depth. So if we're gonna focus on Meadow Street, for instance, we're gonna have the exact same depth all the way back here. And that's looking all right. There is one thing I wanna do though. So I think that we could have some sort of a path connection through here that would really kind of make that distance between this house and this house much shorter. If you were going to visit your friends, you'd want to be able to get there relatively quickly, and right now it is quite the hike. And I officially lied to you. So I said I wasn't going to go crazy, but then I moved every single house around here and it just looks so much more balanced. I just like it a ton more. All right, we'll keep going, and I'll try not to continue to do that, but you guys know who I am. Now I want to focus on this area, and I want to have a small commercial node here. Nothing crazy, but I think that we've got to have some uses in this area. So what I'm thinking is maybe we bring back the zoning along the couplets, and we have some of our commercial uses there. And I'm going to go with the European low density businesses, hoping that these have less parking, and I'll go 3 deep here. And now I'll fill the rest in with lower density residential. Maybe along the front side right here along Rosewood, we'll have some row homes just kind of fronting the water. I think that could be a nice place to live. Next, I want to think about this area, and this would be a fairly undesirable location. We've got Bridge Street right here and then our couplet. So what I think we're going to do is kind of line this up with some row homes and maybe one low rent housing building, maybe right about here. And now we've reached milestone 18, which gives us loan limit and other things, none of which are all that important at this point in the game, but you know, good. We're progressing. All right, so now that we're getting over here, I want to start to taper the density up even further. So we've had some of our row homes right here. I think it's time that maybe we start to sprinkle in something with a bit more density. So I'll go with one 5x5 European medium density building. And then I know we have one across the street, but the purpose of that is the school. So we're going to place another parking lot right here and then a few more row homes. Now, right over here, I think I want to start out with one low rent housing building, and I'm going to go about a 4x4, and I'm hoping that this is within scale for this area. That looks pretty tall. I think we've got some different sizes. So I'm going to delete this, play a little bit of whack-a-mole. Look at that. That is much smaller. I don't know if it'll remain small, but the goal is to not have overwhelming buildings. And then I'm going to try for one European high density building. We'll place that right here. I'm going to go 5x5 and see how tall it gets. Yeah, that's not going to work. And it looks like 3x3 is the best I can do right there if I want something that's reasonable height. And I think up and down here, we're just going to have something fairly simple. I'm thinking we'll have row homes, but I'm going to place parking first. And we'll go with something like that. I'm not going to lie. I really wish that I could extend these parking lots. It feels like there should be an upgrade where I can just make this thing go back, but this will do the trick. I can pull it back like that and then hopefully play with the surfaces to make this thing look reasonable. And we've done this because I want to try to get a lot of the parking off the street. This is already going to be a loud area because of the highway. And I think that we could reduce some of the noise by planting trees right in front of these buildings. And while we're in this menu, let's add those sound barriers right on the side of the highway. And that would be huge for this neighborhood. Now, I'm going to come back over here and finish up. But before we do that, as I get sidetracked, let's add trees to one half of the roads around here. There, and now I won't forget to do that. And now we can fill in the last lower density residential around here. Again, I think I want to go with the row homes around the lake. And then I wouldn't call this beachfront, but I think I'm going to go hard with the beachfront properties right here. And then for our last little residential district right here, I was considering maybe going with some higher density right here. But considering we went a little bit deeper right here with our row homes and we had more of them around here, I think that we'll have more single family uses in this area. And now we've got just 2 more areas to fill in, and these ones are going to be a little bit more involved. So we're going to have a mixed office and commercial complex right here and a bunch of commercial right here. So for this one, I want to have a special building, but here's the thing. All the signature buildings are locked, with the exception of some residential ones that I don't really want to place right here. So the building I really want is the food station. I would need to zone another 1,000 cells of North American low density. I don't want to do that. So we're going to use Find It, and I'm really curious to see how you guys feel about me doing this. If you're not a fan, let me know down in the comments. But sometimes you just want to place a building, and it feels like these buildings are kind of gated a little bit hard, in my opinion. So I'm just going to do it. I'm just going to do it, and you guys will tell me if you hate it. And if you hate it, I won't do it again. And you know, I was going to place one of our ploppable parking lots right here, but my fear is that it dominates too much of this area if I do it. Maybe if I place just one of these and then we load this up with one commercial building, that'll do the trick. I think we'll try that, and we'll need to use paths and surfaces to make this feel like a cohesive area. Now over here, we are going to use custom parking lots, and I think that that's the only way that we're going to make this feel like a cohesive unit. So we're going to have some offices back here, and then some commercial. And as a refresher, the reason why I decided to have all commercial right here and tuck the offices away back here is because reasonably, the offices don't need the same visibility that the commercial needs. Just different needs for different land uses. And now I want to build a custom parking facility back here that kind of hides the parking and shows you all the buildings up front. Now, ideally, I think we wouldn't have all the parking in front of these buildings. I wish that we had assets that didn't do this, but it's what we have right now, so we are going to work with the assets that we have. Now, for this, we are going to use our extra networks, and we'll use the invisible road path along with the invisible road path with the parking. So I will start out with the parking. And there we go. Now, the reason I don't make many of these is they are super time consuming and they look pretty janky, but I do think that we can clean this up if we give it a little bit of thought. Now, before we move on, I do want to fix one thing right here. We'll add some key walls. Oh, and I get to choose one or the other right here. I get the key wall or the sound wall. I think we've got to go with the sound wall. And then we'll just make do as best we can with grading right here. And with our zoning in place, let's move on to a little bit of landscaping and detailing. Now, throughout the build, I've been doing a bit of landscaping and detailing, so there won't be as much as there could be, but there's still a lot to do. We are going to be decorating our parks, extending our surfaces, and adding a ton of greenery. So let's just jump right into it. And there we go, generous landscaping all throughout the entire area. I do want to point out a couple of things that I did though. Right here we had a bunch of sound walls, and I realized we were actually working against ourselves because we have all our commercial here that we want to be very visible from the highway. And by having the sound walls here, you wouldn't actually be able to see those businesses. So I took those down, added a bit of landscaping, and then we got that key wall that we wanted right here so that we could have a flatter ground underneath this. And then for everything else, I just kind of generously went through here, trying to make sure that where we would have a noisy corridor, we'd have tons of landscaping. And then I initially was thinking that I'd try to go fairly natural through here, but the more I thought about it, this is a very controlled development, and we want to really control the landscaping as a result. And every single tree was basically planted either by hand or with the line tool as a result. And I think that the end result is a neighborhood that really feels good. I really like this neighborhood. And with our landscaping complete, there's only one more thing left to do. Let's take inventory of what we've done with a brief city tour. And before we wrap things up, we've got to name this airport, and Chase Barrick left an excellent suggestion. Magnolia Paradise Regional Airport, or MNP, which I love. This airport code has been claimed by another airport, but it seems like basically every code has been claimed, so we are going to just roll with it. And I'm guessing that this name would really give James some heartburn. And then I just wanted to take one more look at our neighborhood and admire the population. We are about to cross 80,000 population in the county, and we are starting to grow up, and the cities are starting to grow together, and we're starting to see some major progress. And I think we're going to see even more growth in Bend in the near future. But for now, I think we're going to leave it here, and I really hope that you've enjoyed this one. If you did, please hit the like button. If you're not subscribed to the channel, please consider doing so. And I want to thank you so much for taking the time to hang out with me today and play some City Skylines 2. There's a million things that you could have been doing. You decided to hang out with me, and I really appreciate that. Can't wait to see you in the next one. Thank you so much. Take care. Bye-bye.